The morning sun poured through the tall glass windows of Ashwood Estate, painting gold across the marble floors. The air shimmered with the kind of wealth that silences everyone who enters. Polished crystal chandeliers swayed gently from the ceiling, and servants moved like shadows, silent, cautious, unseen. In this palace of perfection ruled Richard Hale, a man whose smile was worth millions, but whose heart had long been locked away. The mansion was alive with activity that morning. A business brunch, one that could seal Richard's biggest deal yet, was in motion. Every detail had been orchestrated. White roses on the tables, gold cutlery gleaming, and waiters standing in perfect symmetry. But behind the perfection, someone worked quietly, almost invisibly. Evelyn Carter. Her hands were rough from years of scrubbing, polishing, and serving. Yet her eyes held a warmth that no amount of wealth could buy. For over 10 years, Evelyn had been more than a maid. She had been a silent guardian of the Hale household. She was there when Richard's wife, Anna, passed away. She was the one who stayed up through the night when their little daughter, Lily, cried. She was the heartbeat of a home that no one truly saw. But today, kindness would meet cruelty under the midday sun. Laughter and glasses clinked through the dining hall. Evelyn moved swiftly, carrying a tray of refreshments toward the long table of guests. The scent of expensive cologne mixed with the aroma of freshly baked bread. The sound of Richard's confident voice filled the space, boasting of success, of empires, of control. Then silence. His eyes landed on something small, something out of place. A faint brown stain on the edge of the pristine white tablecloth. For a second, no one breathed. Who did this? Richard's voice sliced through the room like glass. Evelyn froze, realizing too late what he'd seen. I'm sorry, sir, it must have been. But Richard was already standing. His chair scraped sharply against the marble, echoing through the massive hall. Do you call this work? This is the standard you think fits under my roof. The investors exchanged uneasy glances. One tried to calm him, but Richard's fury was unstoppable. He turned on Evelyn, his words striking like whips. You've embarrassed me in front of my guests. You can pack your things, you're done here. The world seemed to stop. Evelyn stood motionless, her hands trembling, eyes glistening with shame and disbelief. After 10 years of loyalty, she was being discarded like a broken glass. The servants averted their eyes. The guests looked away. Only Lily, standing quietly near the staircase, watched her father with tears forming in her wide eyes. Evelyn lowered her gaze, whispering, "Thank you. For everything, sir." Her voice was soft but steady. Then she lifted her head, meeting Richard's cold stare. "But before I leave, may I say one thing?" The air thickened. Even the ticking clock seemed to hesitate, that Richard's jaw tightened. "Make it quick." Evelyn's lips quivered, yet her words carried a quiet power. "You've forgotten who cleaned your tears before you built these walls." The entire table fell silent. Forks froze midair. Every eye turned toward the woman who had just shattered the illusion of perfection. Richard blinked, stunned, because deep down, he knew it was true. There was a time when he wasn't this hardened man. A time when grief had almost destroyed him. And it was Evelyn who had held his world together. But now, that same woman was walking away, her footsteps echoing softly against the marble floor. Outside, sunlight streamed across the mansion's front gates as Evelyn stepped out, clutching her worn handbag. Behind her, the estate stood still, its pride wounded, its truth exposed. And just as the heavy doors closed behind her, a small voice broke the silence. "Daddy, why did you hurt her?" Richard turned. His daughter stood there, holding something tightly in her hand. A small silver locket Evelyn had dropped on her way out. Inside it was something that would soon unravel the truth he thought he'd buried forever. The sun had set hours ago, but the mansion still glowed under its golden chandeliers, an empire of light that suddenly felt hollow. Ashwood Estate, once alive with the hum of servants and business chatter, now stood eerily silent. The echoes of footsteps had faded, leaving behind only the faint hum of the air conditioning and the haunting memory of a woman's final words. "You've forgotten who cleaned your tears before you built these walls." Richard Hale sat alone in his glass-walled office, staring out at the empty driveway. The city skyline gleamed in the distance, but it only reminded him of everything he had gained and everything he had lost. His reflection in the glass looked foreign. The sharp suit, the controlled expression, the illusion of strength. Yet beneath it all was a man who couldn't silence the guilt clawing at his chest. The office door creaked open. Tiny footsteps echoed softly across the polished floor. His daughter, Lily, appeared, her small hands clutching something silver, her eyes red from crying. "Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling. She left this behind. Richard turned, frowning slightly as Lily placed a delicate silver locket into his palm. It was old, its edges worn smooth from years of touch. The moment his fingers brushed against it, his breath caught. He knew this locket. It belonged to Anna, his late wife. He hadn't seen it in years. He slowly opened it, expecting a photograph. But instead, folded neatly inside was a piece of paper, faded with time. He unfolded it carefully. It was Anna's handwriting. "If you're reading this, it means Evelyn kept her promise. She swore she'd stay by your side, to care for you and our little girl when I no longer could. Richard, please, don't let the world harden you. Remember, kindness is what built you, not power." The words hit him like a blow. His knees weakened. Evelyn hadn't just worked for them. She had kept Anna's dying wish. For 10 long years, she'd lived quietly in his shadow, honoring a promise he never even knew existed. While he built towers of glass and steel, she held his family together piece by piece. But what Richard did next, the narrator pauses, would change the course of his life forever. He rose abruptly, his chair toppling behind him. "Where is she?" he demanded, his voice cracking for the first time in years. Lily pointed toward the front gates. She said she'd wait at the bus stop until dark. Richard didn't even grab his coat. He ran through the long corridors of marble that now felt like a prison. Servants watched in shock as their unshakable boss sprinted through the courtyard, his polished shoes slipping on the smooth stone. Outside, the late afternoon sky blazed with orange and gold. Down the road, by the quiet bus stop, Evelyn sat on a bench, a small suitcase by her side. The light caught her face, softening the lines of exhaustion and heartbreak. When she turned and saw Richard approaching, she froze. He stopped a few steps away, his chest heaving, eyes glistening. For a long moment, neither spoke. The world around them seemed to hold its breath. "I read the letter," Richard finally said, voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know. Evelyn, I didn't know." She looked at him with gentle sadness. "Some things aren't meant to be known, sir. Just felt." Richard's composure crumbled. The man who once commanded boardrooms now stood before his maid, trembling. "I was wrong," he said, his voice breaking. "You gave this house more than anyone ever did. Please, forgive me." Evelyn smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the golden light. "I already did," she said softly, "because bitterness never healed anyone." At that moment, a bus approached in the distance, its engine rumbling faintly. But Evelyn didn't move. She placed the suitcase down and gently rested her hand on Lily's shoulder as the child ran toward her. The next morning, Ashwood Estate didn't feel like the same place. The sharpness in the air was gone. Laughter echoed down the halls again. The servants smiled. Even Richard's steps felt lighter. Evelyn chose not to return as a maid, but her presence lingered like sunlight through open windows and on the company's front gates. A new plaque gleamed under the morning sun. "Hale Industries, Humanity First," in honor of Evelyn Carter. But as the camera slowly pans back to the mansion, a single question lingers in the silence. What if it took losing her for him to finally learn what love meant?